when I was growing up, like my mom, something was wrong with her. I love my mother, you know, but she didn't connect with me. She didn't like look at me, and she didn't, you know, she wouldn't hold me that much, and she didn't look, she wouldn't look me in the eyes, right? And so as a kid, I felt like something was wrong with me. You know, I felt like, oh, if the person that created me won't even look at me, then something must be so wrong with me. You know, and I've worked through a lot of this stuff. And so I'm kind of going down this lane. But it just gave me like a lot of low self-worth. You know, it just gave me low self-worth. And honestly, it made it tough for me to even have a self, because the only person that I only knew who I was if you reacted to me well, right? Like I became just a people pleaser because I didn't have any feelings of self-worth. So the only way I could get my worth was from you, right? From somebody else. And it made sense because I didn't have a me. You know, I didn't have a big sense of self. And so I got myself from who you thought I was. And I needed everybody to like me. I needed everybody to like me because I didn't know if there was a one person that didn't like me, if one of the plates stopped spinning, if it was all gonna fall down. So anyway, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but the thing that also happened was that all of that energy, that negative energy, that uncertainty, that became my story, right? And it gave me like a chip on my shoulder where it was like, you know, I'm gonna show them, I'll show these you know, I'll do this, and you know, it gave me all of that. It gave me all of that energy. Like I'll prove to them, I'll prove to somebody that I'm worth something. I'm gonna make. Yeah, I just want to look in somebody's eyes and have them be pleased with me. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. I think it's all that any kid wants. I wanted to just look in somebody's eyes and have them be pleased with me. And all that gave me a chip on my shoulder, you know? And so anyway, so it gave me all this energy. It was like, you know, I'm going to figure this out. I'll do it myself. You know, and all that stuff served me well until, I think just until now. It's like, I don't know. I'm just tired of living that story, man. I'm tired of that story. You know, I'm tired of that story. I just don't want that story anymore. You know, it's been a good story and it's served me well. Dang, homie, I'm leaking. Yeah. It's been a good story and it served me well, but I don't want that story anymore.
A while ago, I made a video about how as kids, we can develop superstitions that persist into adulthood and can lead us astray. I was referencing this book, How Real is Real. And I appreciate what Theo had to share here because it gives me another opportunity to discuss some of the ideas from this book. But first, to just comment on some of what Theo had to share. Fortunately, like many comedians, it's not uncommon to have a neglectful or distant mother that inspires your humor based on a desire to produce a different emotion in your mom and receive the affection that you are so dearly lacking. As kids, we're fairly egocentric, even though we haven't really fully developed an ego yet, as Theo alludes to. He notices this absence, this lack of attention, intimacy from the mom, and he extrapolates a principle or a general rule from that, which is that he, in totality, is not of value, not worthy of affection. And when you do that, not to say it's not perfectly natural for a kid to draw those kind of conclusions, but the danger in doing that and then growing up and carrying that belief forward, that story forward, is that now it's a general principle that applies to all people that may cross paths with you, not just the mother that may have inspired this belief. And why is that dangerous? Well, because we're leaping from this particular individual, for whatever reason, has not shown an interest in us in the way that we hoped, to that's just how people are toward me. Those are two very different things. Believing that this particular individual views me in a certain way, values me or doesn't value me in a certain way, versus the entire human race views me in this way because innately I lack value to them, which may have contributed and inspired what Theo went on to do, which is to get very good at producing, evoking positive emotions in other people that could be bounced back to him to contradict or compensate for this original negative image of himself. Let me now share the excerpt from Paul Watzlawick's book. Superstition is usually considered a purely human affliction, through which we hope to establish some order in and gain some control over the capricious uncertainty of the world around us. But it can fairly easily be produced in animals, such as the laboratory rat, as well as in pigeons. A rat is released from its cage into an area about 3 feet long with a food tray on the far side. 10 seconds after the rat's arrival, food is dropped into the tray. If the rat gets to the tray less than 10 seconds after its release, it gets no food. Before long, the rat, with its practical mind, manages to put 2 and 2 together. Since it takes the rat only 2 seconds to run directly to the food tray, the extra time has to be spent in a way that is basically alien to the rat's normal inclination to head straight for food. Under these circumstances, the delay acquires a pseudo-causal significance. Whatever the rat does during these 8 seconds becomes, in the rat's eyes, the necessary action that produces or is rewarded by the appearance of food. These behavior patterns, of course, vary from rat to rat, which gives them a particularly capricious aspect. Back and forth movements, a certain number of pirouettes to the right or the left, jumps which the rat may have done purely accidentally at first, are faithfully repeated time after time. And every time the rat finds food in the tray, its belief is confirmed that this particular behavior is what produces the food. These types of behavior are the obvious equivalent of compulsive human superstitions, which are often based on the vague belief that they are acquired by some divine experimenter. Not to compare Theo or anyone else to a rat, but there's a lot to learn and apply to human beings from this experiment. I think it overlaps with what Theo was discussing. He develops a superstition, or we could say comedians, or many people, not just comedians, people that because I don't have value, I've been convinced I don't have value, so I have to invent an adaptation, I have to do something to produce the affection that is being denied me. Now, as Watzlawick described, for the rats, there was a variety of different adaptations that occurred, that were adopted by the rats. And humor is just one, being funny. And when we do that, and we get the positive response, we're therefore incentivized to keep doing it, do more of it. In the case of human beings, it can have a legitimate effect. In the rats, it was just purely, it had obviously no impact on whether the food appeared or not. It was just purely superstition, With human beings, these adaptations can actually produce a real effect. And that's why they persist from childhood onwards. If they didn't work at all, if it was just completely random, then they wouldn't persist, they wouldn't become habits in the first place. So it's because they work to some degree that we keep doing them. But, as I described in the previous video on this topic, once our environment changes, often when we become adults and we exit the home environment where these adaptations were birthed, then in this new environment, sometimes those adaptations can no longer produce the desired effect that we were used to. And they can become either superfluous or actively harmful to us. With Theo, there's comedy, humor as a whole, there's another tricky aspect to this, which is that it is a way to obscure and distract from the underlying issue, which is this original core belief that I don't have value. And so I have to do something. I have to be a jester, or I have to be funny, or whatever else to compensate for my low or absent worth. We're just addressing a symptom, which is that can I get people to enjoy me and like being around me in the present? But as Theo described, there's this constant fear that, well, what if I fail with this new person? What if this person isn't like the others that all left? Then the whole facade collapses and I'm back to believing or being reminded of what I feared most, which is that I don't actually have any value. No amount of external approval can really solve this. Because as Theo said, again, there's only needs to be one person to defect from this consensus view that I'm funny or humorous or charming in order for the whole thing to collapse. 1,000 people can tell you you're a great guy, you're charming, funny, intelligent, but you can recall one person that meant or means a lot to you that didn't behave that way toward you. And that exception to the rule can make all the difference to you. And we can fixate on that. And that keeps this negative belief about ourselves alive. So it's a question of whether we're willing to go back and question whether this generalization based on this singular instance or singular relationship was a rational conclusion to come to. That just because this one person, even if it's my parent who is most expected to show me love and affection, even if that person failed or refused, does that prove anything about my worth? And does that necessitate that that's the way I am and all other people should treat me the same? Are you open to the possibility that this particular person, for whatever reason, chose or chose not to treat you in a particular way, not because of who you are, but because of who they are? And that if we swapped you out with another child, they would behave similarly to them. A lot to think about there, so I think I'll pause for now and just thank Theo for being willing to share those aspects of his own life and help us or be an inspiration to look at some of these principles more broadly that apply not just to him, but to many people.